Today on the Daily Scoop podcast from the Scoop News Group and brought to you by Deloitte. Vice presidential nominee Tim Walz's record on cyber. And NOAA looks to take on wildfires with satellite data. It's Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. Welcome to the Daily Scoop podcast, where you'll hear the latest news and trends facing government leaders. I'm the host of the Daily Scoop podcast, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for joining me. Here are today's top headlines. Big news came Tuesday as Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris announced Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, to be her running mate for vice president. As Walz steps into the spotlight, he brings with him a deep record on cybersecurity. In 2022, Walz helped spearhead a letter urging the Biden administration not to complicate state cybersecurity measures with federal ones. And the same year, he also published his own executive order on cybersecurity, directing state agencies to upgrade their defenses and to use the powers they had to protect critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. And just a couple months ago, he signed into law a data privacy measure. Additionally, as co-chair of the Council of Governors, Walz co-signed a letter responding to Biden administration warnings in 2022 about heightened cyber threats following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, writing that enhanced measures to guard against cyber attacks are most effective through a combination of reasonable, uniform federal guidelines and carefully considered state processes. The letter singled out a 2021 Biden administration executive order that directed federal agencies to take a wide array of cybersecurity steps, urging careful consideration of the likely consequences of states' independent adoption and enforcement of disparate cybersecurity standards governing private utility providers, and saying that without uniform federal guidance, legal difficulties and service disruptions could ensue for states. Walz also created the first line of dedicated cyber funding for his state in 2019, work that continued in subsequent years with a big chunk of money devoted to IT upgrades for state agencies coming just last year, including for cybersecurity. He also signed into law last year legislation designed to punish the use of deepfakes to harm a political candidate or influence an election. In other news, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration wants to better use satellite data to help federal agencies improve how they detect and track wildfires. A new collaborative agreement between NOAA, the Department of the Interior, and the Department of Agriculture's U.S. Forest Service was announced in July and serves as a step toward developing specific fire tracking tools with the needs of those agencies in mind. It builds upon NOAA's existing work to modernize and automate fire detection. Michael Pavlonis, program manager of the Wildfire program in NOAA's National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service, told FedScoop that the agreement enables very targeted co-development of capabilities that will maximize the exploitation of NOAA satellites for detecting fires as early as possible. Pavlonis said that will be particularly helpful when there's a very busy burning period like we have right now. Wildfire season generally happens in the summer and fall, but over the past several decades, that season has expanded. Since the 1970s, it's grown from 5 months to over 7 months, which has been a product of factors related to climate change. Just this summer, a fire in New Mexico killed 2 people, burning more than 17,000 acres and destroying roughly 1,400 structures, according to NOAA. The new agreement specifically takes advantage of NOAA's geostationary operational environmental satellite R-series satellites. The fleet is the most current version of NOAA's weather satellites that are geostationary, which means their orbit matches the rotation of the Earth, so they stay hovering over a fixed location. The first of the satellites launched in 2016, and the fourth and final installment launched this June, reaching its orbit in July. The work under the new agreement stems from actions under the 2021 Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, from which it draws its funding. And it comes after a commission on fire mitigation established under the law made dozens of recommendations to Congress, including expanding the use of fire detection systems and more collaboration. The initiative is also supported by $20 million under the law, which is split evenly between agriculture and interior. Notably, both the Next Generation Fire System and the Fire Weather Test Bed at NOAA were also funded by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. For more news at the intersection of the federal government and technology, visit fedscoop.com. And now I'll pass it over to my colleague Wyatt Cash for a word with the sponsor of today's episode, Deloitte.
Today for our special segment, we're taking a deep dive into an increasingly important topic, the future of the Arctic ice melt and what it means for national security, the environment, and the economy today. We'll also explore how Deloitte's cutting-edge solution, developed with Google Cloud and Google Earth Engine, is helping predict and visualize future ice melt scenarios and their implications. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and I'm joined today by Sue Calwhite, a Managing Director at Deloitte Risk and Financial Advisory in the Government and Public Services practice, and a former Director of Analysis at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Sue, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Wyatt. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited about talking about such an important topic.
Well, first, let's set the stage. The Arctic is changing dramatically as a result of rising temperatures due to climate changes. Scientists also assess that the Arctic is warming at a rate approximately twice the global average. That's a profound effect on the Arctic ice melt, and that has both environmental and socio-political implications. Examples include access to natural resources, increased maritime commerce, both of which create opportunities and challenges.
Yeah, those are great examples. And you're absolutely right. They both have national security implications as nations in the region vie for control over access to those natural resources and the trade routes, which potentially can lead to conflict.
And that part sounds serious. Tell me a bit about why the Arctic is strategically important for national security purposes. And I think when most people think of the Arctic, they picture the beauty found in the icebergs and about polar bear sightings. But tell us a little more from your perspective.
I also have those images of polar bears. But in addition, the Arctic region really does have significant implications for national security, really due to these reasons. One is its strategic location. The Arctic's geographical position makes it a potential theater for military operations, particularly for countries in the Northern Hemisphere. This region provides the shortest routes between North America, Europe, and Asia, which can be used for military logistics as well as strategic advantage. Second, the natural resources. The Arctic is rich in natural resources, including fossil fuels, fish, and minerals. For instance, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, the region holds an estimated 13% of the world's undiscovered oil resources and 30% of undiscovered gas reserves. Control or influence over these resources can be a significant factor in national security. Third, maritime commerce. The opening of new sea routes, particularly the northern sea route along the Russian coast, can significantly reduce shipping times between Asia and Europe. And this could potentially transform global trade patterns and offer economic benefits to the shipping industry. Disruptions in access to these maritime shipping lanes caused by conflict could have global supply chain and economic impact. Fourth, sovereignty claims. The Arctic region is governed by very complex international laws and treaties with several countries, including Russia, Canada, the United States, Denmark, because of Greenland, and Norway, all laying claim to parts of the region. Disputes over these claims can potentially escalate into conflicts that impact national security. And finally, the new military and commercial opportunities. As the Arctic opens due to melting ice, it presents new military and commercial opportunities. Countries may seek to establish military bases or invest in infrastructure to secure their interests. And all this can influence the balance of power in the region. In conclusion, the Arctic's strategic location, its vast natural resources, and the evolving geopolitical landscape due to climate change make it a region of very significant importance for national security.
So let's talk about what steps the United States government is taking today to prepare. For example, in 2022, the White House released an Arctic strategy document that outlines the U.S. agenda for the coming decade. In response, organizations from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, to the Departments of Defense, Homeland Security, and Interior have all identified the Arctic as a strategic priority. Is that right?
Wyatt, you are spot on. And just to expand on that and to give a few specific examples, the U.S. Department of Defense announced that it will soon release an updated DoD Arctic strategy. The strategy is expected to highlight how the Arctic has changed in the last 5 years, both in terms of climate change and its impact, as well as the potential for geopolitical tensions to destabilize the region. And in response to this strategy, each military service will have their own operational requirements related to Arctic operations. And the 5 U.S. combatant commands, including U.S. Northern Command, U.S. European Command, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, U.S. Transportation Command, and Strategic Command, each will have their own interests and priorities above the Arctic Circle. In addition, the military services and combatant commands are not the only elements to respond to a new DoD Arctic strategy. The National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency, my former agency, which is also a combat support agency, is prepared to support requirements that come out of this strategy. Their role will build on their comprehensive collection of high-resolution imagery, maps, and geospatial data that they've been developing in collaboration with academia and industry since 2017. On the environmental front, NOAA's Arctic Action Plan, in alignment with President Obama's 2014 national strategy that you talked about, focuses on 6 priority goals to monitor, understand, and protect the Arctic. These goals range from forecasting sea ice and improving weather warnings to enhancing partnerships and advancing resilient Arctic communities and their economies. And this is vital to the U.S. Department of the Interior as well, which has the responsibility to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, as well as the National Petroleum Reserves that are in Alaska. Finally, the Department of Homeland Security's Science and Technology Directorate has awarded $46 million to the University of Alaska to launch an Arctic Center of Excellence in Homeland Security. As the Arctic region's challenges evolve, this center will work towards improving regional resilience and fostering collaboration between government agencies, industry partners, local communities, and academic institutions.
So it seems that in the not so distant future, it will be important for nations working in and operating in the Arctic to establish new norms and boundaries for peaceful and sustainable international cooperation. How do you see that unfolding?
Well, I agree exactly with that comment, Wyatt. The Pentagon's announcement of their updated DoD Arctic strategy also seems to support the need for establishing those new norms and boundaries. For instance, according to the Pentagon, one of the main points of the strategy is engaging with allies and partners, not only for collective operations, but also collaborative capability development. It seems that the U.S. Department of Defense will take an international partnership approach to respond to the evolving Arctic landscape. And additionally, DoD has publicly shared that the strategy will outline areas where industry can assist with the services and the combatant commands to help equip and prepare to operate in the Arctic region. At Deloitte, we also are anticipating how we can help. We've partnered with Google Cloud, as you mentioned, to develop a tool using Google Earth Engine that models and visualizes the future ice melt and its impact over time. This tool allows us to overlay data on natural resources, shipping lanes, territorial claims that provides then a comprehensive understanding of the Arctic's future with the ability to conduct what-if scenario planning.
That sounds very cool. Talk to me a little about how you see other organizations taking advantage of this tool to provide them insights related to their mission.
Yeah, and that's exactly our goal, is to really work with clients to provide those insights for their mission. For example, for national security, Arctic Insights will provide insights into potential conflict zones because of the access to natural resources and sea lanes that are opening. For commercial sectors such as oil and gas and shipping and transportation industries, Arctic Insights offers a glimpse into new opportunities as the Arctic landscape changes. What we really think is special about our tool is that we visualize the 5 different climate scenarios from a best case to a worst case based on scientific literature in order to build models for the future ice melt and understand where the opportunities or the risk lies based on how the climate changes and it evolves.
Well, we all know it's incredibly difficult to predict the future, especially when there is so much uncertainty about the extent to which global temperatures will rise. But agencies certainly need answers today so they can make decisions with reasonable confidence about how to plan for it. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And you are so right about how difficult it is to predict the future. And that's why we chose to model the differing scenarios for ice melt so that our clients can conduct what-if planning in the context of those different scenarios. Our tool is not meant to be a prognosticator, but rather to help our clients conduct their planning and resource allocation through improved understanding of the timing of what to prepare for and when it would be necessary to take action.
So tell me a little more about why did Deloitte build this tool and why now?
Well, Deloitte truly understands the importance of acting now in order to respond to climate change. As a firm and through our alliance with Google, we have made large investments in sustainability, climate, and equity across our business to help our clients manage physical and transition risk, adapt to a changing climate, and improve resiliency through advanced scenario modeling and analysis tools like Arctic Insights. Our experience tells us that our clients will look to us for tools like Arctic Insights to help them protect the communities and environment they are responsible for, as well as to help our clients who are responsible for our nation's defense and seek to deter conflict in the region.
Well, it's certainly exciting to hear about the work that Deloitte and Google Cloud are doing and the impact that you can have on national security and global sustainability and climate issues through those efforts. That's all we have time for in today's episode. But Sue, thank you so much for joining us and helping us navigate the changing Arctic landscape. I'm sure there's so much more that we could get into, and this was just a tip of the iceberg, if you will. But stay tuned for more insights on this critical topic.
It's been my pleasure, Wyatt, and thanks again for having me. And let's please keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Daily Scoop podcast, available on all podcast platforms. If you've already rated the podcast on your platform of choice, thanks so much. High ratings and good reviews of the show help more people to find it. The Daily Scoop podcast is a production of the Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Adam Butler and Carlin Fisher help put the show together, and the entire Scoop News Group team contributes. We'll be back tomorrow with more top headlines. Until then, I'm your host, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for listening.